There will be fewer brunch options in downtown Rockford by the end of the week. The owner of the popular restaurant Magpie says she plans to close its doors Friday. Magpie moved from its original location in the 300 block of South Main Street to its current location in the 100 block of North Madison after a June 2017 fire damaged the original site. Magpie owner Stephanie Caltagirone says rising rent and other costs played a part in the decision, as well as legal fees from a lawsuit Caltagirone filed against the owners of the original Magpie property. She tells me a decision on that case is expected at the end of the month.